Is Sandy Alcantara still a worthwhile buy low candidate? Can Christian Yelich bring in a haul? Lock on in as Matt and I talk buy low and sell high candidates on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Sports Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. You can find us on all social media platforms and podcasting apps. Just search for Locked On Fantasy Baseball, and we'll be there. If you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, just hit that little bell below. It subscribes you to the channel, gives you notification every time we drop a new episode. And once again, real quick, if you are listening on the audio end on a platform like YouTube or like Spotify or Apple, and you could drop us a 5-star rating and write a little review, it goes a long way to help the outreach of the podcast. And once again, if you are watching on YouTube, like and comment, because we love to talk fantasy baseball with you. This episode is brought to you by the Gametime ticket purchasing app, the easiest and least stressful way to buy tickets for all of your favorite sports teams, comedians, and musical artists. Download the Gametime app now. And guys, real quick, before we jump into today's episode, we want to thank you for your support. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we couldn't have done it without each and every one of your help and support. If you enjoy our show and want to help us out, please share our podcast with a few friends who also love fantasy baseball or just baseball in general. We truly be grateful for your support in this journey to the 2,000 subscriber mark. And once again, Locked On Fantasy Baseball fans, we have a fully loaded episode for you today. Let us be your team's secret weapon, as always, as we provide you with the best buy low and sell high candidates. Oh, Matt, that's a lot of talking for me today. So, Matt, who do we got up first, my brother? I think we're going sell high first.
Yeah, might as well, right? Let's get the good names out before we start making people feel bad for the guys they're high on. So, let's talk about Mr. Sandy Alcantara. You guys are probably all cross-eyed and probably feeling like a bipolar person off their meds with the way he's been performing. But Sandy Alcantara has been looking a lot better as of late. He went 7 innings yesterday, which I feel was just like an almost 8, where I felt like he was just in a little too long and he got lit up. Other than that, he had 9 Ks for 7 innings pitched. And he had the 7 ERA, which again, I feel like he was just left in a little too long. Along with that, the game before, too, he went 8 innings deep. He had 9 Ks again, and he had a 2.16 ERA against the Cubs. He's starting to show that he's able to go deeper into games. I mean, this is a little too deep for my opinion. Pause. And, it's one of those things where I think Sandy just needs to just reel it in and do it. I think he's getting past that tennis elbow, where he was dealing with all the tendonitis and stuff. So I think where he's about to turn a corner and go back to that elite status of being great. So this may be the last buy low window before he really takes off in moonshots, because Sandy Alcantara with the strikeouts and the last performance against the Cubs is kind of really just showing you that, like, he's ready, and that this last performance might be like, hey, this is my way to sneak it past the goalie and get him out for real cheap. So Sandy Alcantara is 100% a buy low target.
Matt, I'm going to ask you this, since we don't really fire up the worryometer so much anymore around here. Where would you have him if we were talking worryometer? Where would you have him?
3.5. Like, if I start seeing he's getting the elbow issues again or anything of this sort of that, then I'll be a little bit more worried. I'm actually surprised they just didn't full-blown shut him down for a 10-day IL stint, which is a little disappointing. Not that I ever want my fantasy player on the IL, but, tendonitis is just literally the best cure is just rest. So if they would have gave him essentially miss one start and came back the next week, it would have been a lot better for all of us as fantasy managers and owners for Sandy to just got that little rest time and missed was started to. Like, it just would have been so much. But, don't get me started on how they're managing him.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. I might be at like a 4.5 on the worryometer. My thing is here, and I don't know if it's just maybe just me, in the sense of we talked about him maybe like 2 weeks ago, I think right after that Cubs start, And I was fired up on Sandy. I was like, oh, he's going to go out there against the Cincinnati Reds. I think I called a complete game shutout, and I sound like a complete idiot for making that call after he gave up those 6 runs against Cincinnati. And it was at Miami, too. So I was just like, it just had me all kind of worked up. And then after I saw those results against the Cincinnati Reds, I know you were talking about how long he was going into the games, but that's kind of like Sandy's cornerstone over the past, 2021 and 2022. He was up there over 200 innings last year. He led the league with 228 innings. So that's kind of where you really get, the big plus from Sandy, because he's not really a K per 9 type of guy. He usually gets pretty close, but he's not there. And, the 2.28 ERA over the 228 innings is really where you're getting that bang for your buck. I don't know if he's a top 5 starting pitcher anymore, in my opinion. I think he's still top 10. I think he still has that potential. And, Matt, as you said, this is where I'm fully on board with you, this is probably one of your last buy low, times for Sandy. I think he starts picking it up. I think if he finishes the year with like a 3.5, 3.2 ERA, right under that K per 9 with a pretty solid whip, it's a win-win situation. And, that means he's going to be very, very good the rest of the way to get to those numbers, because to get from the 4.9 ERA that Sandy currently has to like a 3.5, a 3.2 in that range, it's going to have to be very, very solid production. As I said, I think the whip comes down. The wins, I don't know, man. The wins, I can't guarantee anything on that Miami team. He was a beast last year. I read you off those numbers, and he only had 14 wins. So that's another reason that I'm knocking him out of my, top 5 starting pitchers to closer to that top 10 range. But it's still a good opportunity to buy low on Sandy. I think you can get him on the cheap. I think we mentioned this before on the podcast that Matt got Sandy pretty cheap in a trade. So that's what you're looking to do. We have a lot of the, sell high names coming up. If you could package a few of them together to get a Sandy Alcantara, that's a very, very solid move. As we always say, we say it all the time in this podcast. That's what, that's why we do the buy low, sell high episode, is to let you guys know how to do it and what players you should be, targeting when you're doing this. But let's move on to another starting pitcher here that was drafted almost just as high as Sandy Alcantara. That's Max Scherzer. Now, Max Scherzer's been dealing with a few different injuries this year. I believe the most recent one is a neck injury. Scherzer just hasn't. Yeah, neck spasms. So he hasn't been his normal self so far this year with a 4.88 ERA across 27 innings, only 26 strikeouts, and that whip is not looking very stellar either with a 1.30. Now, that's not who Max Scherzer is. We know at this point in his career who he is and what he's capable of when he's healthy, because he's done it for so many years. I think Scherzer, he's 38 years old, so, the shoe's going to have to fall off the other foot at some point. And, I'm buying low on him because, you know what, at this point, I'm sure whoever owns Scherzer is super, super frustrated, and they're looking to get him off of their hands. So you can make that move, not giving up a crazy amount to get Scherzer, but that K per 9 is definitely going to come back up when he's out there. The ERA is going to come down. The whip is going to come down. He's on that good Mets team. He's going to win a good amount of games. So Scherzer, in my opinion, definitely a buy low candidate, but you know what? It's going to be a risky one here for Scherzer.
Yeah, for sure. Here's how it is. I don't think it's the age at this point. It's more of like just him having chronic neck issues, which kind of gives me a worry. But this can help you in a lot of ways, because he started on Sunday, went out and only gave up about a run, and he had a nice outing. He had a 5 innings pitch. He had 6 Ks. He got the W, 1.8 ERA, and a 0.8 whip. Like, this is kind of what you want from him. This is what he can do. This is how good he is. Now, it'll just be a little bit more of the fluctuation between this when you do successfully grab him, because, quite honestly, you could probably drop, I'm going to tease somebody for later, and that's like Chris Bassitt for him, or even a Marcus Stroman, somebody we're not going to talk about tonight, but somebody that I really don't trust doing this for long term. And you can toss him up for Max Scherzer and pair him with like somebody small. You might be able to steal him out from under him. And then Max Scherzer, you might deal with a little bit of ups and down, or maybe an IL stint that might correct it all. So I think it's definitely worth the risk at this one, but you probably don't have to give up as much if you really talk him into, that chronic neck injury is really doing it for him. Like, I really don't know if it's going to be worth my while picking him up, but I'm willing to take a shot, give him the spiel. And I know we only gone through about 2 names, but I promise we'll give you a whole bunch more. We're talking about like Pete Alonso as a buy low, Xander Bogaerts and Corey Seager coming up. But before that, we have a great sponsor we need to talk about.
Yes, we sure do, brother. Have you ever tried to buy tickets to see your favorite artist or sports team and wound up being stressed out by how much of a hassle it can be? Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. That's why you need to check out the Gametime app. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Using the Gametime app is super rewarding with flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, images and views from the seats you'll be sitting in, lowest price guarantee, and event cancellation protection. I mean, there's a reason why it's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price always guaranteed. And as always, we want to thank our everydayers and new listeners for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Be sure to look out for a new episode tomorrow featuring players to stash on your watch list in IL. We know you guys love those episodes, so we're going to be pumping out more of those for you. So make sure you lock on in for that. And I will tease some of the buy low guys we do have coming up. I know Matt mentioned Chris Bassitt already. We're going to talk about Masataka Yoshida and Christian Yelich as well. And there's a few more. So make sure you lock on in for the rest of the episode, as from here on out, it's nonstop action, and we're going to provide it for you. But next up for our buy low players, we've talked about this guy a few times already, I feel like, and it's Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso's he started off like a house on fire. He had a bunch of home runs those first 2-3 weeks, had everybody all excited, thought it was going to be an MVP caliber campaign. It still might be, but over the last 2 weeks, Pete Alonso only has 6 runs, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, batting 174. That is 8.446 over that time. I mean, I believe he's still leading the league in home runs with about, what does he have, 13?
Yeah.
And 31 RBIs. So those numbers look good, but I feel like people are going to see that 232 batting average and be all worked up about it and think, oh, no, he's not worth it. But you know what? If you could still sneak in, I feel like it's a Sandy Alcantara situation where this might be one of your last chances to buy low on Pete Alonso. I just kind of feel another hot streak coming from him sooner than later. And I think that Mets team is going to be better. I know the Mets as a whole team have struggled. Lindor hasn't been great. Starlin Marte hasn't been great. But I think as a collective, they're going to come together and they're going to put a nice streak together here. And I think Pete Alonso is going to be a big catalyst of that. Once again, last time to buy low on Big Pete the Polar Bear here, batting 232 on the season. I think that comes up and he finishes around his normal 260 batting average. So he's going to get a little hot streak coming here sooner than later.
Yeah, and let's not forget, too, that Pete Alonso loves to strike out. So,
yes.
He's a modern-day baseball player where they strike out more than they walk, but they still have a good average because they put the bat to the ball or the bat over the fence. And, that just is what it is. So just know that his stats of getting home runs is going to boost his batting average. But let's move on here. Dom, you did a fantastic job. Let's talk about Mr. Xander Bogaerts. Now, it's funny. He's another one that I really thought might have been dealing with the new team, issues where, oh, I'm on a new team and I'm going to have a little slumpy slump. But no, he came out like a bat out of hell, making it stink across the whole world and the whole league. And now I think it's kind of taken effect where he was a little excited to be on a really good team and have a shot at a World Series, but now it's kind of died in. He's in a little slump. This is a perfect time to snag him because we all know that Xander Bogaerts is too good to allow this kind of stat line, right? I think worst case scenario, we see what he did, like what Freddie Freeman did last year, right? Where he lost the power, which he never really had power. So maybe he has under 10 instead of his regular 15. And he just has great batting average and that has high runs and ribbies because you're on a much better team than where you previously were. Not, take out Atlanta at that pace. I'm just talking now Bogaerts, right? So I figured that would have been the one number that kind of got zapped was him going from 15 to maybe under 10, maybe that 6 range. And it's possible. So, I mean, right now, I think this is a great buy low opportunity just because Xander Bogaerts is such a great player and you could snag him out and have a real nice boost in the runs and ribbies department because that San Diego team is just absolutely waiting to just explode. It seems like Soto's turning a corner. Tatis is just back in the lineup now. Machado has turned a corner. So that team is getting ready to heat up and you could scoop up Xander Bogaerts for real cheap and then have a lights out lights out month of May for the rest of May, and then boom, roll into the summer and Fantasy Glory Championship with Xander Bogaerts at the helm at shortstop. So definitely scoop up Xander.
Yeah, Matt wasn't as big as a Xander Bogaerts guy as I was, coming into the year. So I'm actually a little excited to hear that Matt has some faith in him too. The reason I wanted to talk about Xander Bogaerts today, because over the last 2 weeks, Xander Bogaerts only has 2 runs, no homers, 2 RBIs, 3 steals, batting .159, which is 7 for 44 over those 2 weeks for Xander Bogaerts. And you know what? His numbers on the year aren't bad at all, but I feel like, somebody that's been dealing with him over the past, couple of weeks is maybe a little bit down on him. But let's talk about his numbers overall in the year. Once again, Xander Bogaerts, 23 runs, 7 doubles, 6 home runs already, 15 RBIs, 4 steals, batting .265. I think there's going to be a point where this whole San Diego team just goes let's say 25 and 4 or 25 and 5. I think they're just going to have a stretch here where the pitching's going to be right, where Snell's going to be rolling, Musgrove's going to be rolling, Darvish is going to be rolling. And then the bats, as Matt mentioned, Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogaerts, even old man Nelson Cruz getting a little in on the action, Cronenworth. They just have such a good team that I think Bogaerts is going to be great in the runs. He's going to be good in the RBIs. I like that he's already at 6 home runs in 40 games. So it looks like he might get to 20-ish bombs, 18 bombs. I could see that happening for Xander, with a 6 and 40 so far. The 4 steals, he's already halfway to his total last year. It's 110 less games for Bogaerts so far since last year, so he might get you over 10 steals again. So he's going to be contributing in almost every, category. And then, Bogaerts is a career 291 hitter, so that 265 average I foresee being a lot better than where it is. So I think Xander Bogaerts is a great buy low candidate. Probably one of my favorites that we're talking about today, even though our buy low guys today are all very, very spectacular. But let's move into our last buy low guy, and it's somebody who's on their way back. They're sneaky on their way back right here. It's Corey Seager, right? Now, my boy Corey Seager, I was super high on him coming into this year. No shift. I was like, this guy's going to get back to hitting 300, 30 bombs. And I believe, let's check that last update, because I know they were talking about him returning on Monday, but it's not happening today as you listen to this, so he did not play today. He'll be back within the next few days, so you might still have that buy low window on Corey Seager. Whoever's been holding him on their IL might be a little fatigued with that. And he was off to a pretty solid start. He was hitting .359 over his first 39 at-bats, which is 14 hits in that time, 7 runs, 1 home run, 4 RBIs. That's what I'm saying. Those stats really haven't accumulated yet, so this might be the last buy low opportunity. We all know what Corey Seager did last year. He hit 245, but he had 33 homers, 91 runs, 83 RBIs. He's not really a steals guy, even though he chipped in 3 last year. Seager's a career 287 hitter. He's got a lot of power in that bat. He's still only 29 years old. A lot of upside here for Corey Seager. I think he's a spectacular. I wasn't sure if I was going to say stellar or spectacular, but he's both a buy low candidate. Definitely get out there and see if you can get Corey Seager before he returns.
Yeah. The only issue I see with that is you might have to give up a little chunk for him because of the fact that they probably held on for him for so long.
Possible.
But the next guy I'm going to talk about is probably going to be the one that you might be able to go and sneak him out for. But before we do, and I'll tell you his name is Mr. Marishio Tanaka. Before we talk about
Masataka Yoshida.
Sorry, geez. I said it right earlier. So Masataka Yoshida, Christian Yelich, and Chris Bassitt. We have a great sponsor we need to talk about. And we're back here, ladies and gentlemen. And let's talk about Masataka Yoshida. I will not mess it up for the rest of the episode. And, my guy is having a monster season. And shout out to Ethan for asking this question on the tubes. Here's my opinion. He's definitely a sell high, but not for the reasons why you would think. So Yoshida had a great Japanese career. He was a monster down over there where, he had definitely showed the power. He had a 29 home run season. He had a 26 home run season. He put up stats. He definitely was probably the easiest one to translate over from Japanese ball to MLB because the guy just had the power bat. Now, the only thing is we haven't seen the league adjust to Yoshida yet. And this can happen at drop of a dime. So I'm willing to get part with him now, even though he can resurge after they figure him out. But I'd rather not be on the hook for him and be able to scoop up one of these names above, such as Corey Seager, where you probably can. You could make this argument, oh, look, it was easy translation. This isn't going to drop off. So Yoshida, you could totally sneak in for Seager, especially with the outfield depth being absolutely putrid. And they probably already found a replacement for Seager that they feel comfortable with, probably like a Jorge Mateo or somebody off the waivers. So Yoshida is a perfect trade candidate for this, and he's probably going to be one of the best sell highs of all season. So I would capitalize now before they figure him out.
Yeah, I like the concept. I like the way you approach that, Matt, in the sense of if you can take Yoshida and get a big name that we know is going to be good, like if you can get your Pete Alonso or your Corey Seager, I think that's a solid move. But I'll honestly say this: I'm not selling Yoshida unless I get an asset back. Like I'm not selling him like for nothing. I'm selling him to try, like, sell high. That's the thing. When I'm saying sell high, you sell high. You go out there and get you something for Yoshida. And if you can't get a top end name for, I would say like somebody who's at least a 5th round pick caliber, and even if you have to package a small something with Yoshida, maybe one of these pitchers that we're going to talk about here in a little bit that we've already teased. Otherwise, I'm not doing it because what he's doing is sustainable. He's in the Japanese league, he always hit 300 and well over 300 at that. So I believe in the batting average. He's been hitting in that top end of the Boston lineup. So I believe in the runs. I believe in the RBIs because that Boston team's been a lot better than expected. And as Matt mentioned, he's had some pretty decent power season. So 20 plus bombs is definitely not out of the question. Not really a steals guy. So, if he gets you 5 steals, that's going to be, about where he's at. But I kind of like Yoshida. I believe in him. I think he's going to be pretty solid. The thing I know, Matt and I talked about him a lot in the offseason. I kind of waffled at first when I saw his numbers and saw people talking about him. I was pretty high on him, and then I took a step back. I said, "All right, let me lower him." And I was going back and forth. But I'm a believer. I'm a believer in Yoshida. So once again, you could sell high on him, but make sure you're selling high, getting some top end talent back. Let's move on to our next guy though, and that's former MVP Christian Yelich. Man, we talked about some guys turning back the clock yesterday, and this is another guy just turning back the clock. He's getting looking like similar to that MVP form, from a few, actually it's more than a few years ago at this point. We're talking back in 2019 when Yelich was, out there doing his MVP type stuff. But, so far in the year, Yelich already has 32 runs, 4 doubles, 7 bombs, 23 RBIs, 9 steals, batting .262. I don't know how sustainable the batting average is for Yelich because over the last 3 years, he had 205, 248, 252. So that batting average might drop a little bit. And I just feel like he's been such a, flanges guy. Once again, if you're new around here, you don't know about the flanges. That's something that Matt came up with that, everyone over here likes. So we, keep it going. And it just means you're injury prone. It means you're an Alberto Mondesi or a Byron Buxton type where you're always hurt. So I think Yelich is going to wind up with some injuries, sooner than later. I think, you say, hey, and you sell on him while you still can and get some value back. You talk about how he's a former MVP and he used it over 340 bombs, and you go from there with Yelich. I'm not a believer in that he's going to keep this up. I don't see it being sustainable where he, is on like a 25 pace. I don't see it happening for Yelich.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the age 31, no way. Like if he was like 28, 27 and he's having a resurgence, I'd be like, okay, he had a 2-year off, little, dealing with some injury bugs, but my guy is 31. The injuries are only going to get worse at this point. Trust me, I'm 32 and I'm hating every time I have a hangover. I can only imagine every time I play baseball.
Yes.
And honestly, it's like his pace right now, if we were to finish out the season and just like times it by 4, because we're literally at the quarter mark right now at 150 at bats, right? Like a full season, you'd get close to 600 at bats. Let's just quadruple everything. So you're telling me he's on a 120 run pace? You're telling me he's on a 714, 28 home run pace? 100 ribbies right under it, and 32 stolen bases, which he's never had that many. And he's batting 262 on the year. No way. I lied. His highest stolen base season was 30. So let me stay on course here. So like that would be a career high in that. So like, I'm sorry, Yelich is not doing this at 31. So he is 100% a sell high. So I would say pump and dump, no question. Let's move on here. Let's talk about, a great waiver wire pickup that we talked about just about 2 weeks ago as Brent Rooker, right? I said that right, Dom?
Brent Rooker.
I keep saying Brendan. Oh,
you're good, brother. You're good.
Sorry, guys.
You got the last name. I'm just
going to start saying last names. Brent Rooker, Mr. Brent. He's mashing the ball. Like Brent is really doing his thing, and I'm excited for him. I think, he's finally, earned his right in the way, but at the same time, Dom, did you know who the hell he was before he started mashing? Because I didn't.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right. And if I'm looking at his last year's stats, right, between the Padres and the Kansas City Royals, the man batted 125 last year. He did absolute doo-doo with 11 strikeouts to 3 walks. He had 2 ribs, 1 double, four hits in total, and 1 run. His best season in the MLB period was Minnesota back in 2020 in that shortened season where he got 19 at bats. This kid is really nothing to snuff at over the last couple of years. I really just don't feel like he is a long-term play, in my opinion. I'm sorry, A's fans. It is what it is. He is 100% the perfect sell high candidate. I'd rather be wrong and sell him high than place my bet on seeing if this is going to be a longevity play. So definitely trade it. Brent Rooker, I got it right this time.
See, now, I agree with you. It's definitely a sell high for Mr. Brent Rooker here, but I think you bashed him a little too much. I think he deserves a little credit. Let's talk about that minor league season last year before he did get the call. So last year, over 81 games in the minors, Mr. Rooker did have pretty good success. 71 runs, 27 doubles, 28 bombs, 87 RBIs, 5 steals, and he had 289. So he had a little bit of, success down there in the minors, but as you said, when he got called up last year for that cup of coffee, he really didn't do anything with it. And he just has big numbers so far. I don't know how sustainable these big numbers are. I don't know if that 308 batting average is going to stick. I think he could be more around like a 270 type guy. And, he's got 11 bombs. He's near the top of the, leaderboard with home runs. Once again, this is Brent Rooker we're talking about from the Oakland Athletics. He has 29 RBIs, which is also probably near the leaderboards. Oakland's a tough park to hit in, and he's going to play, half of his games there. The lineup isn't very good, so I don't think the RBIs are sticky. But sell high. Sell high on Brent Rooker. Talk up that, minor league season. Maybe, a lot of people don't know about him, as, Matt and I really didn't know about him. I didn't hear anybody talk of any fantasy baseball analysis talking about him coming into the year. So it is coming a little bit out of nowhere. But hey, be like, go on Baseball Reference, look at Rooker's 2022 in the minors and talk about those 28 home runs in 81 games. Talk about the 289 batting average and use that stuff to sell on him. Once again, if you can get him, Pete Alonso, Sandy Alcantara, Corey Seager, package Brent Rooker with Yoshida or, one of these other guys we're about to talk about real quick and, just see where it goes from there. But, I don't think he's going to be as good as he is. If you don't get a great offer, he's another guy I don't mind holding just to see where it goes because he was pretty good in the minors last year, and he still only is 28 years old. So there is that chance that he could stick, but we'll see. Go ahead, brother.
That 28 years old is where I'm not buying it either.
Yeah.
So, that's where I'm saying, I overlooked that 2022 season just based off of the fact he's doing it at 27 years old. He's not doing it at 23, 25. He's doing it at 27. I'm sorry, he's going to be this one-hit wonder or half a season wonder where you picked him up, you felt great, and you dumped him, and it was a quick pump and dump one-night stand for Brent. And it's just that's how I feel about him. I can't see a longevity play on him.
Yeah, no, I'm with you for the most part, but I'm more in the sense of that if I can't sell him high, if I can't get that elite talent, I don't mind holding him just to see where it goes. But like I said, I don't think the RBIs are sticky. I don't think the batting average is sticky for Rooker. So we'll kind of see where things goes. Let's move on to our almost last guy here. We got 2 more on the board for you, and they're both starting pitchers. So, make sure you lock on in for the rest of these, names right here. First one's Chris Bassitt. And, Chris Bassitt, he's great. He's a very, very good starting pitcher, but, he's just been very, very hot lately. On the season, he's got the 3.49 ERA, 49 innings, 41 Ks, and the 108 whip. And I just, at 34 years old, I don't know the longevity here with Chris Bassitt. Like I said, his last couple of starts have just been electric. And it was against Atlanta. He went 9 innings, 8 strikeouts, no runs, 0.44 whip, got the win. And then the one before that was 7 innings against Pittsburgh and, 5 strikeouts, no runs, 1.14 whip. I don't know how sticky all of that is. I don't see it, going, much further ahead with this type of production from Bassitt. I think he's going to be more of a high 3s ERA guy. He's under a K per 9. The whip he's always been a decent whip guy. I don't know if it stays as low as 108. He's a career 118 guy. I expect him to be a little closer to that. But you know what? If you could take the thing with Chris Bassitt, if you could take Chris Bassitt and let's say like a Yelich, go get you Sandy Alcantara, go get you a Max Scherzer, I'm on board for that. Because I like Chris Bassitt. I do, but I think he's more of like a top 50 pitcher than a top 30 pitcher, where he's kind of sitting right now. And that's just my thoughts on Bassitt. I think you package him with something else to go get, a top 10 starting pitcher.
Absolutely. I mean, so like Bassitt has a name value for starters, so why he's on this list. 2, he is performing. And 3, we all know that Chris Bassitt loves to get hurt and do at least a couple weeks on the IL. So yes. And usually what happens is after he comes off the IL, it usually takes him a couple weeks to get started, and that's usually how his ERA gets blown up anyway. And I'd rather just not be a part of that because say he gets the IL for 3 weeks and it takes him about 2 to 3 weeks to bounce back. Now you're talking 5 to 6 weeks of just terrible play or not having the guy at all. Between the two of that, I'm good on Bassitt. I'd rather move on and dump him for somebody else. That's just my quick little take on Bassitt because you could tell I'm really not a fan, even though when healthy, he's good. Let's move on here.
Real quick. And we talk about this on the show sometimes. FIP, fielding independent pitching, ERA indicator. Chris Bassitt's FIP is a 4.87. So that's over a full run higher than what he's producing right now. So that's another reason to think that he is going to fall back in production. But I'm sorry, brother. I just wanted to get that out there. So, a little more back to our case here.
It's all good, man. Don't let it happen again. It's fine. Don't cut me off again.
Gotcha.
You're good. Yeah, I know you got me. You ain't going to do that again. I'm kidding.
Only if I have to.
Nah, I won't let you next time. You're done. Beat. All right. So let's talk about Mr. Alex Cobb, our last guy here. Alex Cobb is great. I scooped him off the waiver wire about 2 weeks ago, and he's been pitching pretty well for me. Over the last month, it's just been absolute brilliance from him. He has 3 wins, 41 Ks, a 1.7 ERA, and a 1.24 WHIP. Through 47 innings. You can't beat that. The thing is, though, he's playing well above his bar of what he's doing. His FIP score right now is about a 2.93, a 2.96. So that's a little bit higher. He's playing about a full run and a quarter over what he's really pitching. It also doesn't hurt that he's also pitching most of his games right now at home, which, San Francisco's park is pretty damn great for pitchers. Right now it's the perfect storm of Alex Cobb. He's a name that's been around the fantasy community forever, so you might be able to flip him. Probably not for a high tier, but he's definitely somebody I'm willing to move for a mid-tier pitcher, somebody or a struggling pitcher that is of the mid-tier caliber due to the fact that, hey, I know this is going to last and I know that he isn't going to have this long-term value, but hey, I might be able to pick up like right now I'm disappointed with Logan Gilbert, for everybody that doesn't know the nickname. Like I might shoot an offer for Alex Cobb and something for Logan Gilbert, and he's a fair person to go after and somebody who's been struggling, not liking the ups and downs of a year 2 pitcher, might want to just say, hey, maybe I'll part ways and take this consistency of the long career Alex Cobb has had. And I did air quotes as I was saying it, very weird. So, that's my take on Alex Cobb.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at Alex Cobb's baseball reference, you kind of know over the last 3 years, he's a high 3 ERAs guy to low 4. He's, last year he was over that K per 9. So the Ks might come up a little bit. And he's never been a good whip guy, and the first few years of Alex Cobb's career when he was younger, he was a pretty solid whip guy for a couple of years there. But over the last, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, he really has not been a good whip guy. So you're not going to get a good whip. You might get that K per 9. San Fran's not been a great team. I know Alex Cobb is 3-1 right now as far as his record goes, but I don't foresee that, maintaining of him having, decent amount of wins, and that 1.7 ERA is definitely not going to, stay where it is. So if you get people that, are a little bit newer to the fantasy baseball world and aren't really familiar with Cobb, say, oh yeah, he's pretty solid, he's serviceable, They see his last 2 outings there have been fantastic. Last 4 out of 5 have been fantastic. Maybe they'll take him, but that's our thoughts on Alex Cobb. But with that being said, guys, we're on our way out for today. So, if you haven't already, please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. Check out our website if you already haven't. And the big thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. Look out for a new episode tomorrow featuring players to stash on your IL and your watch list. But until then, see you.
Peace.